Hey listeners, the battle music you'll hear in this episode comes to us from Family Jules, a truly incredible guitarist who does some of the best covers I've ever heard. You'll be hearing more from him in future episodes in this particular plot arc, so please go check out his work at youtube.com/user/FamilyJules7X. Thanks. Our scene opens in a sinister-looking chamber, lit with sterile and unearthly blue light, causing inky black shadows to flow out from the objects it touches. The room has aspects of a cathedral, with high-vaulted ceilings held up by tall, thick pillars, but also aspects of a laboratory, as scores of insectal Phyrexians labor tirelessly over twisted, semi-organic machinery. Standing on a balcony overlooking this workspace is Lex Luthor, the Blue Praetor of Phyrexia. His eyes drift casually, calmly, over the Phyrexians working below him. He examines each individual worker in turn, looking for the slightest imperfection in their endless toil, and finds none, of course. He has long since weeded out any drones that could possibly introduce any sort of flaws into his flawless designs. Still, one must never grow too content with one's works. The droning, repetitive noise of unified labor is momentarily broken by a percussive bang as the door behind him opens with entirely too much force. Luthor's eye gives an almost microscopic twitch at this interruption, but his composure is otherwise unbroken. He doesn't need to turn to see who this is, of course. There is only one person on the plane of Phyrexia who would even consider barging into his workspace in such a fashion. "Azula," he says. "Luthor, we have some newcomers on the plane. Unwanted newcomers. We've had uninvited guests come and go from Phyrexia for years now, self-styled heroes who can somehow travel from world to world and have taken it upon themselves to make the feeblest of attempts to stop our encroachment. Their efforts are hardly worth our attention. They are children who hope to hold back the tide by building sandcastles. They don't respect us or our power, Luthor. I noticed a group of them trying to run from me, but one of them actually managed to freeze me solid for a few seconds. I dealt with him, but I think he only had enough power to do that because another one of them cast some sort of spell on him. I only caught a glimpse of her, some girl with a staff, but I'm not about to let that insult stand. I'm hunting them down and making them pay for what they did." At this point, Luthor actually turns to face Azula. "You will do nothing of the sort. I'll not have you wasting your power chasing down insects." Red magical energy flares dangerously around Azula's hands and eyes. "Don't you act like you can tell me what to do. You're not my superior. If you want to sit around here watching machines being built, you go right ahead, but I plan on actually doing something for once." She turns to leave. "And perhaps I'll let Father know that you have decided that your own petty grudges and vendettas are more important than his glorious invasion plans. I'm certain he'll understand and agree with you." Azula stops mid-step. Her shoulders tense up in frustration, but then slump over in defeat. "Worry not. Those insects will not get far," says Luthor, directing Azula's gaze toward one particular area of the workshop below. "If one of them used magic in that area, it will be a simple matter to track them down. After all, when one is dealing with an infestation of pests, one merely needs to send exterminators." Welcome to Extraordinary League, an actual play RPG podcast brought to you by Smash Fiction. I'm Dan Mulkerin, your game master. Playing Stitch is Kit Mulkerin.
Why is everything here so slimy? Mordin, were you touching stuff?
Playing Dante is Liz Logan.
That intro sounded like 14-year-old Dante's room.
Playing Nico Minoru is Miles Schneiderman.
So guys, I know the whole Cthulhu thing happened, and I know it's been getting a little bit more evil lately, but just in case anyone was wondering, if I ever get too powerful or too morally conflicted, don't worry, remember, if there's one thing we've learned from Marvel Comics, it's that Nico can always be rewritten when she gets to that point to be a lame fucking nobody.
Playing Luna Lovegood is Megan Bob.
It's not nice being in Phyrexia at all. It does feel a bit familiar. Sort of like when there was a basilisk roaming the halls at Hogwarts, or when there were Dementors at Hogwarts, or when the Death Eaters attacked Hogwarts, or that year when Hogwarts was run by Death Eaters, or when the Dark Lord attacked Hogwarts and destroyed most of it and killed a lot of people. You know, looking back at it, that place was very dangerous for a school.
Playing Mordin Solus is Claire Mulkerin.
Well, here it goes. The portal glows. Why is this now the path we chose? Because this is the part where we go to Phyrexia, and now we're falling through the sky. Where is the ground? Oh, please don't die, and please don't get cut, because everything infects ya. Where is Azula, do we think? Raceland stopped her. Wish I was still inside that clear helicopter. I brought my brand new cure, might do the trick, but I'm not sure. Let's keep our location obscured and just endure until the stone's in sight.
Okay, great.
Smile the musical, anyone? Mordin likes the obscure ones sometimes.
Previously, you received the location of the 4th gem on your list. Unfortunately, that location was in Phyrexia. After gathering up some appropriate gear, including a prototype cure for the Phyrexian plague, and a magical compass that should point the way to the gem, you made the leap to Phyrexia and met up with your allies, Samus and Raceland. It wasn't long, however, before the red Phyrexian praetor Azula crashed the party, and Raceland sacrificed himself to allow you to escape. Your group races through the streets and down the alleyways of this Phyrexian city. As Samus guides you toward her cell's secret hideout, you begin to see more of the city around you, and it becomes clear that the street on which you arrived was atypically deserted. Further off, you can see streets that practically crawl with Phyrexians, many of which appear to be at different stages of conversion. Some of them have completely been transformed into the mechanical/insectal/skeletal look that typifies the denizens of this plane, but many of them have little to no immediate outward sign of the Phyrexian plague, aside from pallid skin and inky dark veins. Then there are those that have begun to undergo the transformation but haven't been completed yet, and these are truly horrific. The transformation twists the subjects' bodies in hideous, unpredictable, and grotesquely asymmetrical ways, to the point that Phyrexian traits bulge like tumorous growths from one side or the other, or sometimes a subject's remaining human traits hang like a dead conjoined twin from the side of an almost completed Phyrexian. Phyrexians crawl on the streets, along walls, and fly through the air on their own insectal wings or in vehicles of varying types. Making your way through these streets, even the small handful of blocks to the League hideout, is a harrowing trial involving a lot of darting from one alleyway to another, and long segments of time where all you can do is wait in cover for a lull in the passing denizens of Phyrexia, so that you can get a few more yards closer to your goal. Samus is clearly practiced in this as she darts her way between shadows, but the tension shown in her body language when a Phyrexian draws near reminds you that, even with her level of experience, she doesn't fool herself into thinking that she's ever safe. Eventually, you reach a large, round sewer grate toward one end of an alleyway. Samus lifts up one end and you all slip through down into the dark, dank tunnel beneath. Your journey down here still covers a fair deal of ground, but is much faster and easier without the constant fear of Phyrexian eyes falling upon you. Finally, after making your way down one winding tunnel after another, you come upon an obviously disused part of the sewer system. Samus walks up to one section of wall, crouches down, and lifts it aside. It looks like the wall itself had been cut away and then fit back up to the rest of the wall, creating a very difficult to spot secret passage that leads into the modest-sized hideout. The room is lit by a single flickering oil lamp on the floor. There's little in the ways of furniture or fixtures here, just a few mats laid out on the floor for sleeping, and what looks like a small camping stove. Beatrix Kiddo greets you as you enter, fixing her light-colored eyes on each of you intensely, her sword held in one hand and pistol in the other. Sitting cross-legged on the far side of the room is the purple-haired inventor named Luca, with a screwdriver in her mouth and a wrench in her hand, as she makes some adjustments to some sort of spherical device in her lap. And curled up beside her is the black-scaled dragon Toothless, who looks up as you enter with his large green eyes.
Aloha.
Toothless!
Toothless immediately climbs onto his 4 stubby legs and heads over to Luna, wraps his serpentine body around her protectively and lovingly, nuzzling up against her.
It's so nice to see you. I'm so glad that you're okay.
This reminds me of Yoshi.
Aw, do you want to pet Toothless? Toothless, Dante has a lot of feelings about one of his friends.
Toothless looks at Dante sort of uncertainly.
He is surprisingly good with reptiles, actually.
Can I pet you?
Toothless uncertainly stretches out his head towards Dante.
Thank you.
Stitch is gonna run over and do his secret handshake with Toothless.
Okay.
Who's the boss of the cell? Do we know, Dan? Who's the leader?
Beatrix is the leader.
Mordin's gonna walk over to Beatrix then.
Nico is casting shield on herself, and Dan, I will be doing that at all times.
Okay, just...
Anytime it fades out, we immediately cast again, unless something prevents me from doing so.
Okay, I gotcha, buddy.
Bankarox Antakulioth!
Nico, for time eternal, is going to be surrounded by glowing blue motes of light, protecting her from physical attack, which will probably come in handy here in Phyrexia. Mordin, you approach Beatrix, who looks at you, sort of scans the party, does a double take, and then says, wait, where's Raceland?
Mordin's gonna sort of turn to Samus and see if she wants to break the news, but he will if she doesn't, because I just don't want to step on any toes.
Yeah. Samus's only response is to shake her head as she pulls off her helmet, looking deeply exhausted.
The last time we saw him, he was doing his best to hold back Azula.
Luca looks up from her corner and says, but he made it out, right?
We didn't see that. For now, we should operate as though he did not.
Shock and grief descend upon everyone in the room like a heavy blanket, smothering any good spirits that they might have had. Luca emits a single cry of despair before she clamps her hand over her mouth and her eyes begin to swim with tears. Beatrix just grips the handle of her sword more tightly and turns away in anger.
If it makes you feel any better, he died in combat helping us get away. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for him.
Mordin's gonna drop to a knee and look at what Luca's working on.
It looks to be some sort of weird bronze spherical device with like several different internal layers and some weird clockwork-looking mechanisms.
If you need a minute, you can take all the time that you want, but for me, it helps to focus on work. Is it the same for you?
She nods, looks up at you and says, yes, I know. I know that the work you do is very good, and I'm sorry. It's been overwhelming. We've been in Phyrexia for so long, and we've been working so hard, and it just seems like it's irresistible sometimes, you know? Like we're chipping away at something infinite, and it can be hard to not feel like it's all just irrelevant.
I understand, but I think it's important for us to just work on the problem in front of us, just one step at a time.
Beatrix turns to the rest of you and says, so, did you bring any information? Anything you can share with us that might help?
Well, we brought this. And I hold up the amulet.
Beatrix looks at it and says, what does it do?
It's gonna help us find the 4th gem.
It locates places where magic isn't.
Yes. Searching for the absence of something, I believe, is the way it was put to me.
She shrugs and says, well, that's not really my area of expertise. You'd be better talking to Race. And then she stops and says, is there anything that we can tell you that might be helpful? Any information that we can provide?
Do you have any information on what this place used to be and what are the major, features? What are we looking at? Last time we went through a damn teleporter, we ended up in some weird place with pipes and fucking mushrooms and I don't even know, man. Give us something.
Well, we're in a metropolitan area. A lot of Phyrexia, at least the central areas, seem to be metropolitan in nature. They tend to center their assimilation efforts on cities so that they can then begin to produce more of themselves and use that as a staging operation. There's a number of districts, each of which serves a different purpose. We are also located uncomfortably close to at least 3 of the Praetors, which has proven a bit difficult when it comes to us doing operations, either rescue or sabotage operations.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do you know which ones?
Yes, we've encountered the blue, the green, and the red Praetors. We've also seen the black Praetor, although we haven't gotten close enough to engage. The only one we haven't seen so far is the white Praetor. We suspect that whoever that Praetor is may be on a different plane, perhaps as part of an invasion.
Do you know if anything attracts or repels the Phyrexians?
Luca says, that's what I've been sort of experimenting with. This device was my attempt at making some sort of stealth unit that we could carry that might divert their attention elsewhere or make it so that they didn't notice us, but it didn't work. I've been messing around with all sorts of iterations of it and nothing so far. It's difficult. Their physiology is very... And she glances over at Mordin and says, well, you probably know.
I've been studying it quite intently, especially over the past 6 months or so. When we have a moment, why don't you show me what you've been working on with this device and I'll see if I can be of help to you.
Luca nods and says, all right, maybe you can succeed where I haven't been able to yet.
Yeah, you should take a look at that. I'm gonna take a look at the amulet deck. Can I just, should I activate it here, you guys? Or, what?
Wait, we could triangulate it.
Is that like a spell?
Gather around, everyone. I'm gonna make a little holographic display.
Ooh.
If you have...
Stitch tries to, touch it. He puts his face in it.
Get the device and tell us what direction it's in.
Okay, I do.
The amulet glows blue and then shines a blue light north by northwest.
All right, so we are here, and I'm going to make a little dot, and then I'm going to draw a line north by northwest up, and so we know it's somewhere along this line. Now, if we could move significantly far enough away and use it again, Mordin's going to make a little dot where we are somewhere else, and let's say, for instance, it ends up pointing this direction, and I draw another line, and then it makes an X. That point is where it is. We can use this to find out not only direction, but distance.
Beatrix says, well, it sounds like you're going to be out searching for the next gem. You may need a way of getting through the city without being spotted by the Phyrexians, right?
Yeah.
That would be very useful, yes.
Although I guess I could probably, use some magic.
Although that is, as we know, and I mean no offense, Nico, but it is limited and unreliable.
Unreliable, maybe? Limited, my ass. Your fucking science is limited.
Beatrix holds up a hand, sensing that this is a long-running argument that is going to start resuming its normal course, and says, as it happens, we may have found someone that can help you. And at this point, a new voice comes from a dark corner of the room. That's where I come in! The flickering light from the lantern throws a dramatic shadow on the wall of a dashing and broad-shouldered figure. But then, looking down, you see that it was cast by a small and very unusual character. It's about 1.5 feet tall. It looks to be a humanoid cat with black and white fur, large blue eyes, a yellow bandana around its neck,
No.
and a utility belt around
Dan.
its waist. Beatrix says, this is Morgana. We recently managed to rescue him from the Phyrexians. He's very eager to help us take them down. Morgana seems primed to explode with excitement. You need to get to a specific location without being seen by those monsters, right? I have a plan that I think can help. Do any of you know about the metaverse?
I'm sorry, this is for me.
I'm guessing there's stunned silence from
Crickets, yeah.
Yes.
from the group, and which doesn't deter Morgana's enthusiasm at all. He continues on. The metaverse is a sort of sub-realm. You can think of it as a shadow of the physical world. The beings and the structures in the metaverse are formed by the cognitions of those in the physical world. You can think of it like stepping into a dream. A tall building in the real world could be miles tall in the metaverse because that's how the people in the real world think of it, subconsciously. If a person sees themselves as a prisoner of their own life circumstances, their shadow in the metaverse might be an actual prisoner in chains, but someone who thinks of herself as a queen of all that she sees might be an actual queen in the metaverse. The metaverse can be a dangerous place, but the good news is, I've been to the metaverse of Phyrexia several times, and it's clear that the Phyrexians don't know that it exists. So I can help you travel into the metaverse, and then we can use it as a kind of shortcut to get you past a lot of the Phyrexians, maybe to this triangulation point that you were talking about.
That would be useful, and then from there we can plot a more exact course to the stone.
What exactly can we think about making things bigger? How does that work?
I really want to see Dante's cognition of himself. Oh my god.
Actually, that's a good point. Will we meet ourselves? This sounds very time-turnery.
Morgana looks up at Luna, and for a brief moment, his eyes literally turn into large red cartoon hearts. They then turn back to their normal blue, and he says, "Oh, forgive me." And he, does this big sweeping bow. Might I have your name?
Luna curtsies and wobbles, and then sort of rights herself. Oh, I'm Luna.
It is a pleasure to meet you, Lady Luna. Your shadows may or may not exist in the metaverse of Phyrexia. It's difficult to tell. You're not from here, so your shadows may not have established themselves. But yes, there is a chance that you could meet yourselves, in which case, if you are able to awaken to your true nature, you might actually be able to unlock a greater degree of power while you're in the metaverse.
Oh, thank you. We really appreciate your help.
He nods very enthusiastically and, turns his face slightly away so that Luna doesn't see him blush.
Mordin's gonna be, kind of rubbing a finger on his temples and be like, okay, so I'm a little lost. I was hoping we could stick to more. Remember when I explained triangulation? Now that's something that makes a lot of sense to me.
Don't listen to him, Morgana. He's just closed-minded.
Can't we use both? That we can travel through the metaverse and just travel unseen, but follow those lines?
Morgana nods enthusiastically and says, absolutely. In fact, that would be my recommendation. Any extended journey that we would make would have to switch between the real world and the metaverse. The metaverse is constructed of the perceptions of those in the real world, so the geography won't necessarily match up completely, and places that are considered to be off limits in the real world may actually be completely physically inaccessible in the metaverse. And also, that magical compass that you have might not be able to detect the gem when we're in the metaverse, so we would have to be leaving the metaverse if we want to reorient ourselves and triangulate, as you said. But even though the trip through the metaverse isn't necessarily going to be completely safe, as the shadows there may still see us as a threat to be eliminated, those shadows are going to not be infectious the way that the Phyrexians are. So our journey there will be dangerous, but not nearly as dangerous as if we stuck purely to the physical world.
What if they think that they're infectious?
Well, I've dealt with them. As far as I can tell, they're not.
If there's one thing I've learned in the time since I've left my own world, it's that there are things that I don't understand, and there are other great powers that, although they may not always be reliable or make a lot of sense, they have done some things that I cannot explain. So if you have a handle on this, then I'm willing to put my fate in your hands.
I'm an expert in it. I can get you there safely, I promise. Any other initial questions or comments that you guys have for Morgana about this, or anything else?
How secure is this location?
Samus says, well, they haven't found us yet, but we don't fool ourselves into thinking that we're ever completely safe. We try to move bases once every couple of weeks just to be on the safe side.
Yeah. We should probably, I feel like, just get going right away. Is there a reason to dawdle?
Do you need some time because of Raceland?
Beatrix says, if there's one thing the Phyrexians don't provide, it's time. We'll take care of ourselves. We'll get this base moved. You should go with Morgana, see what you can get done. If you can get that gem, make it so that we get one step closer to beating Phyrexia, then that's one less day that we have to spend down here.
Goddamn right. Morgana, you ready to rock and roll?
I'm always ready.
But to do what?
To rock and roll.
Thank you.
He, grins a very big grin and looks very excited.
I high-five him.
All right, he very eagerly returns it.
He has to jump up to high five you. It's
Yes.
the best.
Mordin says to Luca, what sort of computer hardware do you have?
She says, computers aren't really my specialty. In my time, they weren't widespread. I'm more about individual sort of gadgets.
Okay, well, I'd like to give you my research on the Phyrexians that I have so that you can continue to work while we're gone if you're feeling up to it. But I need a format to give it to you in.
Samus says, you can put it into my software. I can present it to her later.
I'm gonna upload the stuff that I have into Samus's, suit. I'm gonna hand Luca back the little device of hers that I've been fiddling with. Good luck. I don't know what this thing does, but it's very well constructed.
She says, thanks. Good luck to you too. Make sure to take plenty of notes on everything you observe about the Phyrexians and also about this metaverse thing, because it sounds very weird.
Lace is gonna come up behind Morgana and give him a good sniff.
Okay. Morgana whirls around and says, oh, hello to you, sir, or madam, I suppose. And what is your name? I don't know that I can pronounce that, but I will endeavor to try.
Her name is Lace.
Oh, hello, Lace. And you are?
I'm Stitch.
Hello, Stitch. I trust that we shall be grand adventurers together.
Heck yeah.
Is he bothering you?
Morgana cranes his neck up to look at Dante and says, no, of course, I'm merely learning the names of my new comrades in arms.
Okay, I'm Dante.
Hello, Dante. That is an impressive blade you carry.
Yeah, whatever. Is your belt made out of leather?
He kind of glances down and says, I don't know that I've ever thought about it.
Oh, well, I have this leather coat, I just, a friend with, leather's cool, so, yeah.
Are you wanting to maybe trade?
No, what's wrong with you?
Oh, okay, I guess, sorry, I think I just misread that situation. I like your coat very much, and whether my pouches are leather or not, I stand in solidarity with you, Dante.
Dante's weird. Don't let him ride you.
I go by Mordin and I'm like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with this kid?
Dante's so mean to children.
Oh man. Luna puts a hand on Morgana's shoulder and says, for a first encounter with Dante, that was actually very good.
Morgana looks overwhelmed with emotion. And says, thank you, Lady Luna, that's very kind of you. I try to be strong, even in the face of adversity.
Dante is a lot of adversity sometimes.
Mordin says, all right, everyone, we need to move out. Here's a quick tutorial on non-verbal hand signal communication.
Okay.
Mordin's gonna teach everyone some basic, like, military moves of, like, come up here, or there's things you can do, like, up ahead, 3 enemies, like, that kind of thing. Like, you can do a little, like, basic hand signal stuff.
What about this? And Stitch holds up a ladle and tries to reflect light.
I thought this was really effective last time.
Yes, that is one of the standard moves in our playbook that we have perfected at this point.
Beatrix walks up to Nico and says, listen, just make sure that everyone stays out of trouble and try to kill as many Phyrexians as you can.
I mean, sure. I don't know who you're expecting me to keep out of trouble and how. I don't know if you've met these people over here. Getting into trouble is what they do, and there ain't no keeping them out of it. As far as killing Phyrexians, well, that's also what they do, and there ain't no keeping them from it, so...
Well, good. Just make sure they get into the right kind of trouble, then. Samus walks over to Dante. She says, Dante, good luck to you. And then her eyes, like, drift down to Dante's bicep, and then she just, like, reaches out, kind of gives it a curious squeeze, and then just, like, nods her approval.
You didn't ask me if you could do that.
Sorry?
You just touched me.
Right.
So, retroactively ask me if that was okay.
She looks like she legitimately never even considered that. And then says, is it okay that I retroactively touched your arm?
Yeah,
your
but that means...
extremely well-muscled arm?
That means you have to do it again.
Oh, alright.
Jesus Christ.
Toothless, of course, gives Stitch an encouraging headbutt, and gives Luna one last nuzzle before you all leave.
Be safe.
Stay safe.
So with that, Morgana leads all of you back out through the secret entrance and up a nearby ladder until you reach street level. You all emerge into an alleyway back on the surface of Phyrexia. The same noises of industry and smells of gasoline assaulting your senses once again. Morgana turns to Nico and says, okay, what direction are we headed in?
I look at the amulet.
Once again, you point your will into it, and a beam of light briefly flashes out, showing you what appears to be an arbitrary direction.
That arbitrary direction.
Mordin says, actually, no, we should head perpendicular to that if we're going to get a second point for triangulation.
Morgana looks at Mordin, his eyes narrow seriously, and he nods and says, all right, what direction should we head in then?
Mordin's going to pick a direction and say, let's start going this way. I'll take the lead, and I guess I'll be scouting out alone, and I'll motion when it's safe for you to follow. And Mordin's just going to use his sort of like Tellurian Special Tasks Group, Mass Effect style, running from cover to cover, sprinting across stuff.
As you prepare to sprint off, Morgana's hand touches your knee, and he says, wait just a second. Everyone, stay close. As you all draw in, you suddenly feel the urge to rub your eyes as these strange, dark, concentric circles suddenly expand from numerous points across your vision. And you feel a sensation sort of like going from fully awake to fully asleep in seconds. There's a ripple around you, and suddenly the world looks very different. Before, the world around you was dark concrete and black metal. The buildings were glistening with oil, and there was a sort of grimy, hellish industry to everything. The world that you've emerged into is similar in terms of its layout. You're still standing in an alleyway between two buildings, and you can see a street running in either direction at the end of it, but the whole aesthetic of this place has changed. The buildings around you are made out of gleaming, polished silver, and project an aura of both artistic perfection and unassailable strength. The street before you is flawless marble, and the sky above is a blend of blue and gold, lit equally across by a benevolent and omnipotent glow. Everything about this place would be strikingly, almost unspeakably beautiful, were it not for the sense of oppressive totalitarianism about it. There are no imperfections here, not because an artist threw their passion behind this project, but because any imperfection was aggressively targeted and eliminated. So, despite the surface-level aesthetic differences, this is still Phyrexia in all its intolerant homogeny. This is just how Phyrexians think of it.
Ugh.
Yeah, this is not nice.
Are we in the cognitive world?
Morgana looks at Stitch and nods and says, yes, this is the metaverse. Any beings we see moving around will be the shadows of the Phyrexians.
For some reason, this place seems even scarier.
It's not a safe place, but we don't have to worry as much about the Phyrexians here. We should still keep our guard up, though. And then he nods for you to lead the way.
Alright, Mordin's gonna do so.
Mordin, you come to the end of the alleyway and start looking around, and you see that the architecture isn't the only thing here that's changed. The natives here no longer appear as the usual horrific Phyrexians that you're used to. Instead, they appear as knights in polished armor, with their faces hidden behind full helmets, and they walk around upright and proudly as though they are doing some divine work.
That is in some ways much worse.
You guys are going to, should probably be careful as you navigate the metaverse version of Phyrexia. So now that Mordin has determined the direction you guys are going to go in, you're going to have to roll to see how well you can maneuver in this world. So I think, an agility roll with a bonus for stealth is the most obvious way to go. But as always, if there is something different that you guys want to do, I am more than open to alternatives.
Can Mordin do reason with a bonus for military expertise?
Oh yeah, sure. So your goal is to sort of lead everyone else in tactically savvy ways.
And yeah, more like just think about good routes, watch enemy patrols as they pass, and just use my sort of knowledge of how to travel and not necessarily my skill at not making sound when I move my feet,
I think that's entirely fair. Mordin, you can roll with that. Everyone else can roll agility plus stealth, again, unless there's something else that you would like to do.
My disillusionment charm has to be cast on a person, correct? It can't be cast on me?
Yes, you can cast it on yourself.
Okay, I am going to do that.
I'm gonna stealth.
I'm gonna stealth as well.
I'm gonna cast Out of Focus. Basically, anyone trying to detect me by, visual means, like tuning a television, or audio means, like tuning a radio, is gonna, just come up with kind of static and not really know what they're seeing or listening to.
All right, yeah, that works for me. Let's see your psyche roll.
You or all of us?
Just me.
Just you, Miles, or all of us?
Whenever we die, go on without us, please.
Well, that's a green.
Ugh. All right, I got a white.
I got a yellow.
I got a white.
Okay.
I got a white as well.
The journey moves much more quickly now that you're in the metaverse. Morgana is clearly an expert at moving about quickly and stealthily, and is able to reliably predict the behavior of the shadow creatures around you. And Mordin is practiced enough in observing military troop formations and guiding other soldiers that between the two of them, you guys are able to make your way through this weird reflection of Phyrexia. You lose track of time as you weave your way through alleyways and down streets, always heading in this direction perpendicular to that direction which was given to you by the compass. Eventually, after some amount of travel, you drop next to a medium-height building. Morgana cranes his head upward and points at the fire escape, zigzagging its way down the side of the wall, which ends about 10 feet off the ground. And he says, "Well, we've gone quite a ways. We could use those stairs to get to the top of this building. From there, we could slip back into the physical world and check the compass again if you wanted to do that triangle thing that you were talking about, Mordin."
Yeah, this is as good of a place as any. We've gone far enough.
All right, then. So you all begin to make your way up the fire escape on the side of this building, switching back and forth as you get higher and higher, when suddenly there is a loud clang from above as you see several of these metaverse Phyrexian knights have landed above you and are making their way down toward you quickly. And then you hear a second clang from below as more knights are pursuing you from below. Turns out that your checks to hide from the Phyrexians were not quite successful enough to avoid an encounter, and you are being attacked on both sides by these shadow creatures.
How many?
There are 7 of them.
Okay.
Oof.
Would someone like to
give me
play?
Morgana.
Okay.
Give me.
Kit will be controlling Morgana. Let's roll initiative.
6.
5.
12.
9.
4. Morgana got 2.
As these two halves of this enemy group approach you, something strange happens. It looks as though their bodies seem to dissolve away into shadow and blackness, and then out of the shadow leaps these very different looking creatures. 2 of them look like tall, burly, red-skinned humanoids with very prominent horns and tusks. They're wearing a loose purple outfit and wielding something partway between a curved sword and a halberd. Those are called Oni. 2 of them are red and white-skinned humanoids with the head, mane, and tail of a horse. Those are called Orobos. And the final 3 are creatures with a vaguely canine-shaped body, with purple fur, a rat-like tail, a yellow mane like a lion, and a face that looks partway between a dog and a bat. And these 3 are called Orthrus. So those are the enemies that you guys are facing. And Mordin, you are up first. What would you like to do?
How many could I hit with an area incinerate? I imagine like either all the ones above us or all the ones below us or something like that, or?
Yes, I think that's fair. And I've divided them up roughly half between each, so it's like you have one Oni, one Ouroboros, and one Orthrus coming at you from above, and then I'm going to say one Oni, one Ouroboros, and two Orthruses coming at you from below.
If I'm leading, I'm probably highest up on the ladder, so I'm probably closest to those ones that are right up in my grill, and it makes sense for me to attack those ones.
That works for me. Go ahead and roll your Incinerate.
That is agreed.
Okay, so all three of them are engulfed briefly in a fiery explosion. None of them have dropped, but the Ouroboros, which is the horse-headed humanoid, and the Orthrus, which is the sort of canine-shaped one, are both looking very damaged, and like they probably can't take another one of those. Luna, you were up next. What would you like to do?
If I cast the spell that makes target stairs become a ramp, can I control the ramp so it doesn't dump down onto us? I would want it to be the ones above us. I would want them to be dumped over the side.
Yeah, I'll say that if you want to cast that spell, I will have them make an agility check to see if they can avoid sliding over the edge.
All right, Glisseo. Ah! Fuck everything. It's a Y.
Luna, you point your wand upward, say Glisseo. The stairs above them turn into a ramp and dump them directly onto the level that you guys are on. That's okay, because now they are within melee range of Dante, and it is Dante's turn.
So I want to cut off the rat tail.
Okay, you're going for the
nice.
Orthrus?
Yeah, I want to cut off the rat tail.
So you draw the Sword of Grayskull from your back and go to town.
Oh, yes, I did make a very good decision, Yellow.
Dante, you bring the sword down, sever its tail completely and cleanly. The thing yelps in surprise and fear and throws itself off the fire escape. That one is gone from the fight, one of the Orthruses. And that brings us to the Ouroboros, which are the horse-headed creatures that are attacking you. So one of them is on the landing with all of you, and I'm going to say is going to go for the guy that threw a fireball at it. So Mordin, you have a big ol' horse-headed guy coming at you. Mordin, you fortunately managed to jump backward just out of the range of its vicious kick, and you avoid taking damage. The other one continues running up and spends its turn. It is now one landing beneath all of you and can reach you next turn. Nico, it is your turn.
I'm gonna point my staff at the fire escape below us and say,
Don't wake the escape snake.
Hell yes.
so the part of the landing below us is going to rip off and turn into a snake and fight them.
Okay, well that remains to be seen with how you do your psyche check.
Well that was green.
Yeah, this part of the staircase below you guys is suddenly a large snake that begins biting at the Phyrexian shadows below you. Do you want to have it target one of them in particular?
Whatever one, the one that ran up last turn. The Orbis or whatever.
Alright, so the horse-headed guy is getting bitten by a snake.
Because, like, I'm just imagining, like, he gets nearly up there and he's got, like, one hand reaching out to where we are and then, like, the thing moves.
Yeah. The stairway below him suddenly moves, like sort of whips him into the air with a flexing of its back, and then turns and just bites him out of the air and gulps him down. And you can see this, like, large lump moving down the snake's body. That particular Orbis is out of the fight. It is Stitch's turn.
Stitch sees this horse furry shadow and narrows his eyes and is like,
I'm gonna ride it.
and he charges at this horseman that he's going to jump on top of if he has anything to say about it.
Your goal is just to physically move yourself on top of it.
Consider it a grapple.
Okay, very good. So go ahead and give me a strength check.
I think this is green.
All right, not good enough, sadly. So, Stitch, you run up to this horse-headed creature, which begins kicking at you, thinking that you're going to start attacking it, and then its eyes widen in fear as it realizes that no, you're trying to ride it, and instead you spend your time chasing it around the fire escape.
Stay still. Hey!
Can Lace do a thing?
Yes, Lace may do a thing.
Okay, who's the closest, what's the closest shadow to her?
Now that the Ouroboros has run away, I'm going to say it's the remaining Oni that's on the fire escape with all of you.
Yeah, she's gonna just fucking go all raptor on that fucker.
Yeah, go for it.
That is a yellow.
Yep, Lace leaps on this guy and starts clawing into the Oni. The Oni falls backward a few steps, taking the raptor claws, but the Oni is still up. And it is now the Orthrus' turn. These are the canine leonine enemies that are approaching you guys from below. Their current route to get up to you is blocked by a giant snake, so they're going to try to attack that instead. One of them leaps forward and takes 2 solid bites out of the snake. The snake writhes around and then sort of drops back down, turning back into a stairway as it does so. But it's like very twisted out of shape and no longer attached to the landing above it. The remaining Orthrus below is going to attempt to jump up to the next landing. and does so but loses its turn in the process. So you have one more enemy on the landing with you, and it is now Morgana's turn.
So he's gonna pull out his little saber, and he's gonna cast Garu on the Oni.
Okay, Morgana holds up his saber in front of his face. Come forth, Zorro! At that moment, behind him, all of you see this towering, ghostly figure appear of what looks like a figure dressed in dark clothing, wearing a black mask and a hat, with a rapier held up in a similar position in front of his face. And then the ghostly figure behind Morgana swings his rapier, and a gust of wind suddenly engulfs the Oni. Make a psychic check for Morgana.
He got a wipe.
Okay, so the spell goes wide, the Oni anticipates it and is able to move out of the way. Morgana just gives kind of an angry, "Nyah!" It is now the Oni's turn. The Oni turns toward Lace, who has been attacking him, and the Oni sort of like brings back its polearm above its shoulder as the second Oni leaps from below and also lands on the platform with the rest of you. And they both simultaneously use an attack called Rampage and begin just slashing at everyone on this platform. All of you are going to get hit once by this for 20 damage.
Unless that shit is above Shift Y, I believe you mean no damage, sir.
Alright, so one of the attacks bounces off of Nico's shield, which eliminates one of the floating motes. And we are back to the top with Mordin. So at the start of the round, we have one Oribus, that is the horse-headed enemy, who is currently being chased around by Stitch. The two Orthruses, which are the canine enemies, one of which is still down on the lower level, one of which has leapt onto the level with you guys, and then the two Oni are also on your guys' level right now. In terms of who's been injured, the remaining Oribus is injured, and one of the Onis is injured.
The guy who just got up onto our level, I'm going to try to boop him off the side of the fire escape using my gravity gun.
Nice! Bringing out the new toy. So you're targeting the Oni, correct?
Yeah, I'm just doing the short-range burst. Barely a green.
And the Oni fails its endurance check to resist the push of the gravity gun, so it takes a telekinetic burst to the chest, flies off of the fire escape, and plummets down what looks like about 12 stories. The Oni, one way or another, is out of the fight. Luna, it is your turn. You are down to one Oribus, two Orthruses, and one Oni.
Who is doing all the slashing at everybody?
The Oni was the one that just attacked everyone.
I'm gonna cast Tarantalegra. Yay, it's yellow.
Luna points her wand, and the Oni suddenly loses all interest in rampaging or fighting in general, and just starts doing, I'm gonna say, the Charleston.
Yeah, that's one of the best dances.
It is. Dante, it is your turn. What would you like to do?
I have the rat tail, and I'm going to approach the Oni and tie his ankles together.
Okay. He's dancing right now, so that could prove very disastrous for him. I'm going to say that's an agility check for you.
I'm going to use Karma because I really want this to work. And I didn't need to. That's a red.
I will let you decide what happens. It could be that, like, you tie his ankles together and then he loses his balance and topples off the fire escape, or maybe you just, like, end up tying him up and then he falls over and he's just sort of, like, dancing on his side so he's no longer able to stand up.
Yeah,
it's kind of up to you.
That's exactly what I was thinking. He's, like, dancing as if he weren't tied up, and it's just...
All right. Yeah, that's great. He's just sort of, like, doing weird motions on the ground now.
Yeah, like a fish.
I think we can consider this Oni out of the fight. Stitch, the Oribos that you've been chasing, turns around, gives you this weird, monstrous whinny, and is going to try to pick you up.
What?
He manages to grab you by the arm and is going to try to fling you off the fire escape.
All right.
So I'm going to need an opposed strength check from you.
If I succeed well enough, can I reverse grapple him?
Yes.
Isn't that a thing?
If you get a red, you reverse the throw.
I'm gonna karma this shit up.
All right.
Yeah, make it a red.
Okay. So he tries to throw you.
And I have little sticky hands, so that doesn't happen. In fact, I get leverage and then throw him.
All right.
I judo flip his ass right off of there.
It's beautiful. There are multiple dances going on this platform right now as the Oribos, the horse-headed demon, suddenly ends up pirouetting gracefully through the air as he flies off of the fire escape.
Stitch is just like,
What did I say?
Nico, what would you like to do? The only enemies left are the two Orthruses, the two canine enemies.
I'm gonna point my staff at them and say 2 steps back. That's a yellow.
The two remaining Orthruses suddenly decide to back up a little too far and go over the edge of the fire escape and plummet down, but now they get to be with all their other friends that you guys have thrown off this building, so it works out well in the end. So all of you are continuing your way back up the fire escape, past the Oni that is sort of just writhing on the ground now with his ankles tied together. Morgana, you can tell, is sort of like trying to make up for the fact that his one attack missed.
Aww.
And is now just like trying to overemphasize his own like strength and masculinity as he walks up these stairs.
So small, so cute.
All of you reach the roof of the building, and you can now get a much better view of the surrounding area. It looks as though you may be near where like several different districts of the city intersect, as you can see different building design and street layouts when you look in different directions around you. Morgana looks up at Mordin and Nico and says, well, is this a good spot for us to double check where we are in the physical world?
Is there any way of telling if there are going to be Phyrexians around when we re-enter?
Well, no, not really. We can get a sense as to what the Phyrexians think of this place by how it appears here in the metaverse. It looks just like any other building rooftop, so I don't know that it's likely that there's anyone up here, but we should be prepared.
I guess everyone get down against a wall, kind of stay out of sight in case there's people flying by or looking up at this building, but that's probably the best we can do.
So you guys sort of like hunker down and try to remain out of sight. And Morgana shifts you back into the physical world. The same concentric dark rings float across your vision. You feel a sensation this time as though you're waking up. And the more familiar version of Phyrexia emerges around you with its dark buildings, its sickly colored sky, and the swarming insectal denizens all around. Fortunately, there are none on the rooftop with you, and the position that you chose does seem to be concealed enough that you should have at least a few minutes before you have any reasonable chance of being spotted by anyone.
With my, Omni tool and stuff, do I have any sort of map of the area we've traveled to so far? I know the place we were. Do I know how much distance we've traveled? Can I tell that so that I can triangulate?
Yes, I'll say that you can make a reasonable guess as to where your point of origin was when you first sent out the compass. So
Okay.
You can guess as to where you are from there. You should be able to pinpoint wherever it is that the two beams would cross.
Okay, cool. I want to try and do that now.
So the blue beam of light flies off. Mordin, you begin to track it and cross-reference it with the map of this area of Phyrexia you've been making. You bring the two lines together and then look out across the city to where you see them intersect. And it looks as though they have intersected inside a walled-off section of the city.
About how far away is it?
It's maybe like a quarter of a mile away from you guys.
Oh, cool. So we're really close to it. Awesome.
You've actually gotten quite close, yes. There are some towering, jagged hills within. It suggests the kind of silhouette of like a junkyard, maybe. But as you watch, you can see slow-moving air vehicles from other districts of Phyrexia will occasionally fly in, swoop down low, and like deposit new layers of garbage to the pre-existing mountains before they turn and fly off. That appears to be your destination. What would you all like to do? How would you like to try to go about getting there?
We could disguise ourselves as trash. That's not my best idea. It's just my first idea.
That might be where they take things that don't fit in with the aesthetic that they're going for this plane and drop them off to be, I guess, incinerated or reshaped into something spikier and spookier, I guess.
I mean, we can't assume anything so precise. More likely is that they thought it was nothing special, but realized they couldn't affect it, and so just, put it in a warehouse. Is there a reason we shouldn't just go the way we've been going?
Morgana says, that's an option, unless there's something else that you would like to try. We could see about maybe hitching a ride on one of those vehicles that are going in. They might even exist in the metaverse.
That occurred to me too, but...
Can we steal one?
Anything can be stolen.
Morgana looks very excited by this premise, but tries to keep it cool, and says, I suppose that is a thing we could try to do.
I'm gonna say... Eye in the sky? I'm gonna try and get a bird's eye view of the immediate area between us and our destination. Green.
Yeah, so you are able to get a bird's eye view of the area. If you want to create an opportunity for you guys, you can do that. If you want to say that, you see a big air vehicle flying by that you guys can easily jump onto, or if there's something else that you would like to say is going on, then that's entirely fine too.
I'm looking specifically for a back alley or a path that we can use where there are as few encounters as possible. You know what I mean? I'm examining it to see if there's an abandoned little street or something like that.
Yeah, why don't we say that you happen to notice that one of the streets appears to be closed off for repairs. So
Okay.
there's no actual traffic on there, and it doesn't appear to be watched.
So yeah, there is a little side street, guys. We could go. There doesn't appear to be anybody there.
I wanted to steal stuff.
What if you can steal stuff in the junkyard? We could steal lots of things there.
This is true.
All of you begin to make your way back down to the street, and Nico leads you in the direction of the closed-off street that will lead you to the junkyard, and hopefully to the gem that you seek. And that's game. Extraordinary League is produced by Dan Mulkerin, with logo design by Claire Mulkerin.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com for our theme song, Motherload, and to TabletopAudio.com for our background music and ambient sound effects.
You can find us on Twitter at SmashFic Podcast and search for the Smash Fiction Podcast on Facebook, Tumblr, and YouTube.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Smash Fiction is made possible thanks to our supporters on Patreon at patreon.com/smashfictionpodcast. Please consider donating as little as $1 each month. It helps us keep the show going. And we have great rewards and extra content for those who help us out.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
I'm sorry if I saw a cat, an anthropomorphic cat with a scarf whose eyes turned into hearts, and he was talking about going to a dream world and unlocking my inner self, and I didn't think it sounded like hard science. I'm sorry.